like the board members to be reminded that it's our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. Being none, if during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Thank you. There's like an echo. Okay. Can you please review the agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to accept tonight's agenda.
Also, clarification for athletic Mr. Club, the new president is Lena Smith.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The agenda has been accepted. Okay, we do have several community members or parents who have signed up for public comments. Ms. Ashley Lancaster.
Did everybody hear everything? No, push the button. Okay. Is that better?
Okay, that's very good. For those of you I don't know, my name is Ashley Lancaster, and I'm here tonight with my husband, Neil Lancaster. We have two daughters at Neuse, one who is a rising third grader and has been at Neuse since the start of her elementary schooling, and the other who will start kindergarten this year. I want to say first that we are at this meeting because we want to see Neuse succeed. We believe in Neuse. We believe it can be a great school and came to Neuse believing it was the best choice in the county for our children. Unfortunately, like other parents we have spoken with lately, we are becoming discouraged with our experience at Neuse. I felt that it was a good idea to go ahead and bring these concerns to the board. During our time at Neuse, it seems that the school lacks stability and consistency at the top. As parents, we have watched as administrators such as Dr. Silver are hired and leave with little to show but the waste of valuable resources. We seem to hear new educational catchphrases each fall, but often fail to see it followed through in the classroom. We have also watched as teachers leave and Neuse struggles to fill these positions. Even now, we have been unable to find a candidate to permanently fill the position of high school principal. Without good teachers and good leadership who make the teachers feel respected and valued, we cannot succeed. When we first applied to come to Neuse, it was a unique choice in Johnston County. It offered innovative classes and ideas. I look now and can hardly distinguish it from our public counterparts, with the exception perhaps that they have much more substantial fundings in certain areas. Neuse should be leading the way in Johnston County. I hope the board will take an honest and in-depth look at the hiring and retention practices, as well as the substance and efficacy of our educational plan. I know that with an honest assessment and the support of all of us involved, we can make Neuse be a top educational choice in Johnston County. While I have your ear today, something came to my attention yesterday that I also want to bring up. I was speaking with a parent and I was told that a very popular club here at Neuse, Cougars for Christ, is not going to be allowed on campus this year. Cougars for Christ, which is held outside of instructional time, routinely attracts around 140 students a week. If it is not being allowed, if that's true, I would like to understand why a club that has been part of Neuse for 12 years and regularly draws over 1/9 of our student population is being shut down without discussion. As parents and administrators, we should be empowering our students to explore and pursue the various extracurricular interests. We should not be suppressing or discouraging them. I personally have concerns as to whether the decision is even legal, let alone in the best interest of the many, many students who participate. When I heard about this decision, I got on the website to look and see what the protocol was for both starting clubs and ending clubs. I didn't find anything. So in addition to finding out on what grounds this particular club is being denied, I think moving forward there must be a clear written policy, quite detailed, as to what steps can or need to be taken both to start and to shut down a club. In particular, I feel that if the administration has concerns about a club, there should be an open opportunity for discussion to address and, if possible, rectify any concerns before eliminating the club from campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lancaster. We will now hear from Anthony Hopkins.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Hopkins. I'm here with my wife, Amanda. We also have 2 daughters who go to school afternoons. We have one in the primary academy and one entering the intermediate academy. We love this. We choose to come to this. It is a school of choice. We believe it can be a school of excellence as well, and that's what we all should be striving for. We all have the same fight. We're on a ship. Somebody has to steer the ship. We need somebody to make sure they're steering the ship in the correct direction. We have seen the 2 most important aspects of a child's education: the teacher standing in front of that child and the curriculum that's in place to teach that child. We have to have both strong teachers. We have to have a strong curriculum to get these children where they go. This is a benefit to our children, a benefit to all the children in News Charter, as well as a benefit to our entire county. This school can be the model school where everybody says, this is where you want to go. This is a school that shines. That's what we're all looking for. There's been a couple of emails that went out from both the primary academy as well as the intermediate academy that they're going to try to go back to a Padilla model of education. It's a great model of education. It's what I come from, classical education, based on the Socratic method. I know it well. I went through law school. That is a perfect example of how to teach children a complex subject. But that being said, though, there have to be training to implement that. We can't just say we're going to have this model that we're going to follow. We've got to have a curriculum put in place that will address that. Some of the ones I've looked at that use the idea education model use things like core knowledge, for ELA, they use things like Singapore math, supplemental with Khan Academy. There are great resources out there. We've got to figure out what we need to do to put this in place. Sometimes I feel like we've sort of just been bobbling around. We went, from what I understand, before we were here, it was a Padilla model or tried to go in that direction. Then we went to what I understood was called the plus model. Not even I'm sure what that is. I've read a little bit about it. It seems like there's a lot of words, fair play, just catchphrases. I don't know what curriculum was ever put in place to even back that up. I'm not sure if there was a curriculum put in place to back that up. Our experience has been, it's luck of the draw, it's chance. What teacher you get is going to determine what type of education you receive at this school. What we have found, it seems like 1/3 of the kids are getting educated and 2/3 are not. That's a shame. We're failing our kids. We're failing the future. Our kids are going to be the ones that takes our place. They're going to be the ones that come in here and stand before you. They're going to be the board members. We have to educate these children to be able to do that. Without the proper education, it's impossible. I know this isn't a question and answer session, but I do have some questions I just pose for you guys to think about as far as the direction that the board and administration wants to take this school. One is the goal. What is our overall goal in becoming a Padilla school? What are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to become a certified school? Are we trying to just say we're using that model? What's the purpose of it? After we have a plan, we have to have a goal. If you don't have a goal, it's just a wish. We're back to leaving it to chance, and we cannot do that. So the plan, have you established a long-term plan with how we will be using this Padilla model, how it will be implemented, what components will we be using, will there be a Padilla curriculum put in place to support this model of education, how much training will be conducted throughout the year for teachers, staff that are going to be implementing these policies. Will you be explaining to families throughout the year regarding the stages of implementation, where we're at, where we're trying to go, the struggles we see? Then measurable objectives. How frequently will we measure these intervals? Have we established measurable objectives to use the PIDEA model? Are we going to have frequent intervals of measurement? How do we know if this is working or not? If we don't test on it, we don't know. We got to get together, collaborate, and discuss what are the pitfalls, how can we overcome those pitfalls. The other thing is collecting data. How many points of data are we going to collect? What are we going to do with those points of data? How often are we going to collect this data? If we just use one point of data, you cannot get the false positive and false negatives out. You need a triangulation of data. If you get it from one point, you don't know if they know it or not. They could have gotten lucky and made a good grade. They could have had a bad test and did bad. We don't know the true answer of how that child is doing without multiple points of data. And then when you keep families informed of how their children are progressing and in what ways will this occur. Thank you for your time. I also have those questions. I've got copies of you guys will like.
I'd like to thank tonight's speakers. I know on behalf of the board, we appreciate constructive comments and for you taking the time to share your perspectives with us.
This is about PIDEA. It's part of.
Thank you enough that we can say.
Oh, it's okay.
Thank you.
So it was going to be discussed later.
Okay, we will move on to the approval of the June minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? The minutes have been approved. And now Mrs. Smith from the Booster Club. Well, we congratulate her on her election to president.
It's just the refrigerator on the minutes.
And our Student Government Association report. Okay, our director's report.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone was able to travel here safely. Didn't have to shelter in place too long in your places of business or homes earlier today. As far as our enrollment update goes, we were targeting an enrollment of 960, but know that we budgeted for 945, so we're still in that range. We currently have 946 students enrolled as of this afternoon, with 309 students remaining on the wait list. Was today the last day that the most recent time people were called?
Movement on the wait list. Today was the most recent.
Were students calling today?
Yes.
Yes.
Anytime it opens up, reception calling.
At this point, the question was when was the last time students were moving on the wait list? That would be today. At this point, we're not waiting for a weekly rotation. It's every time that we are aware of a withdrawal or a movement out of state, we'll call immediately. We have 309 students on the wait list as of this afternoon. 946. Welcome. Our total full-time positions are still holding at 92 for the current school year. I haven't been with you all since May, so I get to say current school year. Our total vacancies at this point are 7, and we do have 3 recommendations for closed session tonight, which means that we're continuing our interview processes for the 4 remaining vacancies. I gave you an operations update at the last meeting with that special project list that was approved. I wanted to just make sure that you were aware of where we were. The installing of the edging has been completed. We're still in progress on the treating and sealing of the ramps, but that will be done before classes resume. The storefront doors have been ordered. I'm not sure if all of them have been delivered because I don't think they've been replaced just yet. The gym lobby has been painted. The first floor of the high school has been painted. The exterior trash receptacles, you might not have seen them in the rain, but they have been installed. They have a blue color, so they're more obvious for our students so they can find trash cans as they walk around campus. We have installed chair rail in classrooms on the first floor to help mitigate some problems with the sheetrock, where the chairs and the tables were etching away the sheetrock, so it'll make that not have to be repaired as frequently. We have begun some of the high-level work that needed to be done using scissor lifts, but there's still a little bit of work left to be done, but that's in progress. The power washing started yesterday, as it's raining today. And the ductless air handler has been moved, and that project has been completed. In addition, the special project that was approved at the last session has also already been completed in the science classrooms, and the teachers will be trained on how to safely use that equipment as they return to campus. And they're already coordinating with Dr. Schwartzlander to make sure that even this year's curriculum shows some adaptations now that that equipment's in place, so we can do some more advanced chemistry labs already this year. And then we'll be bringing on more advanced level chemistry courses in future years now that that ventilation system has been installed. At this time, I would then like to draw your attention to the single sheet of paper. I think for some of you it's yellow. It says Excellence in Academics. As part of what we've been working on with our strategic plan, it's coming up with a format that's going to communicate well how we're going to progress through each of our goals for the current year. We do know it's a 3-year strategic plan, and I find it somewhat coincidental that PDEA was the topic that was used as an exemplar today. But in the area of excellence in academics, you'll recall that we talked about 4 main goal areas, one of which was reinstituting the PDEA model of instruction across all academies. As a reminder, the PDEA model of instruction is a technique or a tool that teachers can use to help students dig through complicated issues, to help them take time in expressing their views, to digest different types of texts, and those can be texts that we would familiarize ourselves with, things like articles, sections of a book that they're reading collectively. It could also be a piece of art or a modern news article or something like that, something that requires a little bit of reflective analysis of the article and then dialogue. It'll teach the students how to respectfully disagree with each other, how to politely agree with each other, how to hear each other very clearly, and to really work on that core competency of communicating effectively and analyzing data that we've been talking about, as well as exploring diversity issues and diverse sources of information. So what we wanted to share with you was what the first year goals are. And the first year goals are to train all of our teachers in the PDEA model of instruction. And the way that we'll track that is to track our staff participation in those trainings. And right now our target is that 80% of our staff will be initially trained by August of 2019, and that 100% of our teaching staff will be trained by May of 2020. The academy leaders will be responsible for making sure that their staff members attend these trainings and participate effectively in these trainings. And then they'll also be responsible for some follow-up work with their teachers to make sure that once they've gone to the training, they know how to implement that strategy in their classes. To help increase and speed up the implementation of the PDEA seminars, because if you're not familiar with it from a teaching perspective, to take one of your current lessons and remodel it in a way that would use a seminar does take really good time and effort to make sure that it's going to get the product that you want from the students. If it's not thought out well, the students can just have a lovely conversation with each other, but they won't really get that rich understanding that we're targeting and that skill of collaboration. So what we're going to do is work to give them some, to make sure that we support them in helping them walk through some really fine-tuned seminars so that they can get that practice with ones that are really well developed, either through the PDEA Center or through other teachers who are nationally trained PDEA presenters. So what we'll do is make sure that they submit their student data, and we can talk through this and have a special training on PDEA, but one of the things that the teacher does is they sort of build a map of the classroom and they track how the students are participating, not just that they're participating, but the quality of their participation and the quantity of times that they're participating. And they use that to then reflect on how they're going to change their instruction in that classroom with that setting in future sessions. They can also use it in the playing field. If I notice, let's say that Mr. Woodard just hasn't interjected and has just kind of not participated, but I can tell you're thinking thinking about something you want to say, I might create a quiet space so that you can join into the conversation and have your voice heard. If I notice that someone is offering a lot of comments, we can switch to a round robin model so that way each person gets a turn, those kinds of things. So it's a really great tool, and so by submitting that data, we'll know that we'll be able to see how well they're working their students through the process and how well the students are actually engaging. In addition, students beyond the conversation will always have some sort of a writing assignment to do following the session, so that'll help us enrich our writing skills. But that data will be how we will measure whether or not we're successfully implementing those. We'll be doing those aligned with the core values once a month with our students across the K-12 spectrum. So where we have teachers that aren't fully trained, we'll give them a mentor or a buddy to help them work through the process. In addition, some targeted content areas have been asked to really take hold of this and get the ball rolling quickly. So we have grades 5 through 8 in English, language, arts, science, and social studies committing to doing 2 content-specific seminars during the school year. And then we also have our English teachers in the senior academy dedicated to doing 1 content-specific seminar per course minimum. So those are our targets for the first year to get this moving, and then to take that feedback and that information to help us make sure that all the rest of our teachers can use this tool properly. To help out, we're also going to run our staff through the training by having them participate in seminars, not just learning how to do a seminar, but participating in it themselves. And so we'll be running our staff through quarterly seminars and giving them feedback and teaching moments and training opportunities that way. And we're targeting that at least 95% of our staff will participate in all of those. We do know that there'll be some attendance issues here and there, but our goal is to make sure that 95% of our teaching staff are able to participate fully in that recurring training. If this model of communication works, then this would be what we would give you for all the rest of the goal areas. But before we went too far, I wanted to make sure this was the type of data and the type of information that you were looking for so that we could give you those regular reports.
Is there a certain priority for the training of the teachers as far as which teachers will be trained first, or is there a priority?
We actually had an opportunity through some federal funding to advance the training cycle for some that were just ready to go, and it happened to be intermediate academy teachers that were available at the time that we could do it this past spring. So they're actually going to have the second day of that session coming August 1st. And then we were able to, that way they've already sort of had a half of a training in the summer to kind of think about it, and then they'll have their second day of training, so they're a little farther ahead on the training schedule, which is why they're ready to jump in and get it rolling with it right away. The other staff that will be, the 80%, will be getting their training on the 1st and 2nd of August. So it'll be really fresh to them as they come into the school year, so we want to help and encourage and motivate them to sort of tackle it one step at a time.
So, how are you assessing the quality of what they learned? Because just saying 80% of the people were trained, you could not have heard a thing, but you sat there. So what are you using to...
So, right, as I mentioned, when we get into the student participation data, and perhaps we probably need to, at some point, we would love to bring the board in and go through a PADEA seminar with you. That way we could kind of show you how the tools work. And I might defer a little bit to Dr. Swartzlander because she is our resident expert. But that student data piece tells a lot more about what the teacher is able to accomplish with the students and how well they're understanding the training. So I'll kind of let her talk about that. The student participation data, what the teacher does is it's a conversation tracker. And as a teacher becomes more and more proficient in the discussion and being able to facilitate the discussion, that tracker will allow you to quickly get a snapshot of who has been able to engage in the text, where their entry point in the text is, the kind of comments that they have been able to have about the text, the connections they make with other students. It gives you more information than a normal classroom discussion would, or an exit ticket even. It allows a teacher to see students who have strengths in interpreting art or music or poetry, and students who struggle with the interpretation of more abstract concepts or abstract texts. In addition to the seminar tracker, there is always a writing component at the end. Always. It is part of the seminar process. It's part of the seminar plan. Writing was a focus on campus last year. This is going to give students an opportunity
each and every month to have a formal writing prompt process, piece of reflective writing that teachers are going to be able to gauge not only their understanding of the text, but their increasing writing skills and the complexity of their thoughts.
Okay, I'm not asking about the student. If you took that out of it, how well are you assessing the training of the instructors? So we're not talking about
Teachers.
the student. I'm talking about after you get 100% teachers training, what kind of assessment are you using to say they are trained at the level that then I can let them go in the classroom and I know everything will be implemented at the level I want? Because participation does not assess that. So what else are you doing to assess? Just like sitting in a class does not mean you're going to get an A.
This is true, and PDEA is something that you go through the workshop, but you have to have boots on the ground and you have to practice it. It's a different way of thinking. It's a methodology that some of our teachers are comfortable with, and it's a methodology where some of our teachers are not comfortable because you step away and let the students take the lead in the discussion. How we assess a teacher's proficiency or competency in facilitating PDEA discussions, I think that's an area that we need to discuss. But if I'm going to talk off the cuff about how I would how I would assess a teacher's ability to facilitate a PDEA, would be their participation in our faculty PDEA seminars. Participating in a seminar in the way that you're supposed to participate in a seminar shows that you understand what seminar is and that you can engage in that sort of discussion. Allowing teachers the opportunity to facilitate staff seminars will allow us to see how well they're trained and what skills and deficits they still have or need. And then participating ourselves in classroom PDEAs, being there for the instruction. That's a goal on top of my priority list this year, is to ensure that I am in each class when they are doing some part of the PDEA cycle, because it is a cornerstone foundational strategy that is going to bring news to where it needs to be. And if I don't spend the time making sure that our teachers are comfortable in delivering that seminar instruction, then it's going to be wasted time, space, and money. So my goal is to make sure that I am in classrooms when some part of the seminar cycle is happening.
So would you say currently you have a group of expert level faculty already in PDEA?
I think we have a handful of teachers who are expert level PDEA. They were trained when the school began, and those are the same people that we brought back in for the refresher training in March, and they're getting yet their third round of training on August 1st. I do believe that there are a group of teachers who would proficiently and competently lead a PDEA seminar today.
So will they be assisting you in this oversight? Because I literally cannot imagine how one administrator is going to be in every classroom ensuring that they're, I mean, is that like a train the trainer? Do you have,
yeah, absolutely. And those people are going to help facilitate the PDEA seminars that are going to take place during retreat week for our faculty. So our staff is going to be able to see their colleagues leading PDEA seminar as well in a manner in which it's supposed to be led.
Personally, I would say that this would not be an adequate form of communication because it's vague. So I would like to see some more levels of detail in how these are going to be implemented.
Well, even to speak to Mr. Hopkins, what he said, I want to see something measurable at the end, right? So how do we measure success in this? So I don't know what that means, Dr. Sportsman, I really don't, but if you can help us with that, I think that's a fair thing, and even for the people here on the side.
Well, I think the overall goal as a school, as an academic institution, is that our student performance and our student outcomes increase over time. And looking at entrance exams for college, looking at their essay writing samples and the scores that they're getting on AP courses or even their own internal courses. Those are the overall goals. A secondary element that's not here because we were looking at the frame was developing that internal assessment plan as well. And so including more elements about communication and writing in those assessment plans so that when you see that data, we can see, well, we're about 50% of our students are on target, and then we're showing a little bit of growth each year or massive growth each year as we implement the PDEA strategy. But ultimately, PDEA is intended to be a method that gets students thinking on their own. The long-term outcome is that then they are better students and they perform better on all forms of assessments, be it an interview, be it a standardized test, be it...
I don't think we are questioning the strategy. What I think we're looking for
is the balance between giving you a detailed action plan. Yeah, I got you.
Well, right, that wasn't what I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
I think in the presentation of this that there are things that just sometimes present themselves with broad strokes, and as a strategic, the tactics of the strategic plan, while we don't need to know every single weed within the plan, I do think there are ways in which you all need to include more of the assessment and then finish out the cycle, because where we could see feedback and then redirection if necessary. So it's kind of a trip, but it stops at one point and we don't see the rest of the destination. And I think that would give everyone a lot of valuable information that we're more comfortable with.
Well, if you go ahead and finish that thought now.
I just wanted to respond to Mr. Taylor. PDEA is obviously there are going to be quantitative outcomes, but they are complementary to the PDEA model. There are more qualitative outcomes that you're going to see from our students. We're going to push and challenge our kids to think for themselves. We're going to push and challenge what our kids believe, how they think, how they communicate, how they respond. I invite each and every one of you to come into PDEA seminar and see what happens. That is how you're going to understand the impact that teaching through PDEA is going to have on our kids and have on youth.
We again, are not questioning the strategy. What we're questioning is the plan for implementation, because as some of our parents have outlined, we do have a lot of starts and stops, and we need to put together solid planning for sustainability in terms of how is this going to grow and maintain in the long run, and not because it was here before and it stopped and now it's back. No one's ever questioned that it's not a solid instructional strategy. But that's not what we're talking. We're talking about the administration of whatever we come up with, plus this, whatever. The details in the plan are what is going to allow it to be planted and to grow. And that is what we are most concerned about, the execution of the training of the faculty, how well that has taken place, how that's going to be implemented within the classroom, what feedback and assessment do we have, what new redirection, and how we start the cycle all over again.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Taylor had an answer to his question as well.
So I was thinking about it from a corporate perspective. I've seen a lot of things start today. You decide you win the lottery next week, and a month from now it's somebody else's idea. So that's what I'm asking. So if you have to have something that's sustainable, so whenever you implement it, there has to be a plan and there has to be measurable, outcomes for that. So I'm just, we support you. We're supporting it 100%, but we just want to make sure it's sustainable.
And I think based on the public comments that, Susan, or Ms. Williams, I think you said that
Padea is a tool, not a curriculum, correct?
Correct.
And so I think it would be helpful to parents to understand how the Padea model and that tool aligns with PLUS and our curriculum, because, you know, based on the comments, it seems like there's some confusion on what is curriculum, and, you know, I had the same confusion coming in as a new board member. You know, what is our curriculum versus what are the tools that we're using to implement that curriculum? So I think that would be helpful for parents to see more of a big picture overall. Okay, this is our curriculum, this is what PLUS is, this is what our Padea model is, I think.
So to not belabor this conversation too much longer, but since we do have audience that had questions, when PLUS was created, it was outside the existence of a strategic plan. It was our effort to start igniting a fire underneath our curriculum and our academic programming, to start talking about what makes Noosa's curriculum and academic environment different. And you're right, in our first evaluations, it didn't seem all that different. It didn't seem all that unique. It didn't seem all that creative at the time that we were doing the assessment. And so it was time for us to think about what is our goal. It's for our students to perform and to learn. And so that became performance learning, and then the underscoring success was sort of the infrastructure pieces that needed to be put in place to make sure that was successful. It was a fits and starts piece. It's still there. It's hanging on. It's got a little bit of lifeblood left into it, but it's misunderstood. The goal would be, now that we have a fully formed or mostly formed strategic plan, where we're talking about excellence in developing college-ready graduates, and our focus over the next 3 years is academics, culture, and operations. PLUS then will become the avenue or the angle by which we accomplish all of our academic goals, such that as we look at our curriculum, as we devise our curriculum, as we determine what to do with the Padea model, that all of that will be able to be explained in that sort of section of our website, per se, if you're thinking of it from that perspective. So I don't want anyone to think of PLUS as being constructed and built, because it's not. It's the avenue or the mechanism through which we want to really concretely talk about our academic programming. And so Padea will be an element that helps us to do that, that helps us to ensure that our students are outperforming their competitors, that they're outperforming themselves, that they're growing and they're becoming ready for the century that we're in and for the work environment that's waiting for them. But yes, I agree, we owe the whole community a much better communication plan around all of that, so that that can be much more easily understood.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, so we'll remove, thank you for your director's report and for this information, and we look forward to you deploying the larger message to our community, so that they can see how all the pieces are fitting together and the direction that we are moving in. Our committee reports, will start with the executive committee. We did just have a executive committee meeting where the committee moved to approve Nicole Booker as an authorized signature for a legal contract. And we need to bring that to the full board for a vote. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That motion is passed. And now our standing committee reports. Will start with finance.
So in the, if you look in the board packet, there is the June 1st to June 30th budget. As customary, we always approve these each board meeting. As you'll see to the back page, no major changes from last month. We had made most of those adjustments before. Still tracking towards about a $256,000 surplus for the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. The accrual should pretty much wrap up this month, first of the next month. So we actually had Acadia sent us a preliminary end of year budget report, which is really close to this one. So we should have that finalized at about an August board meeting. No major changes on the finance side. We are starting to talk about, the planning for next year. We approved the preliminary one, but I think what's going to be really important for us is that we link this with the resource development as well as the strategic planning as we go into next year, to just make sure everybody is on lockstep on the same page about what we're trying to accomplish. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the resource development part of the thing, but as far as finance, we didn't have any other thing, it just needing to approve the budget that's before you. And we did say that we decided that it was my recommendation about any money, if you look on the back of the minutes, or you'll see the balances in the operating account. We will reconcile that number after all those expenses are accrued, and then we will come back to the board, maybe able to do it in August, is how much of that reserve money we would want to move over into the contingency account like we did last year. So we'll have a pretty fine-tuned number at the August meeting. But it'll be a pretty good cushion we have, but as we talk about a multi-year plan with facilities and academics or whatever, we're going to need a pretty big cushion a couple of years out. So we got to stay focused on that.
I was also able to attend the Finance and Business Conference that is put on by NCDPI each year, and they did give us a little bit of an update on what's going on with the state budget. If you're aware, the state has not approved its official budget for biennium. So what they have done for charter schools, I'm not sure, I didn't fully listen when they talked about the LEAs. But what they talked about for charter schools is they gave us 20% of our projected head count at last year's ADM rate as an authority to spend, so that we do have some money in July that we can spend. As you get familiar with our systems, it hasn't been put into our allotment system because they can't legally do anything like that until a budget is approved. But they have somewhere kind of off to the side some money that we can draw down and spend so we can open school, pay initial salaries with this year's monies without having to dip into cash reserves. So that's where we are now. Once the state budget gets approved, they'll reconcile all of that through the allotment system. But we do have monies from the state that we can spend to open school, so we're not in a pinch and we're not having to rely on cash reserves to get the year started. It's the Finance and Business Services Annual Conference. And that's a division of North Carolina Department of Public Instruction.
So is that 20% of the first trimester based on the third drawdown from this year?
Yes, so instead of a 34%, it's a 20%. It's not 20% of the third, it's 20% instead of the third.
So I just need a motion to approve the budget.
So, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed. May budget report.
Yeah, so on the resource development meeting, you've heard me say a number of times at the last couple of meetings, and I keep repeating this because I think we've got to get it in our DNA of how these things are interconnected, right? So we have the budget, and then some excess to the budget gets created by our ability to raise money and bring resources to the school. So after talking with Susan, I mentioned this before, I'm going to keep reiterating it because I feel like we have a tendency to forget sometimes, is we've got a goal for this year of $200,000 tied to our resource and our fundraising strategy. That money will be used to offset the cost of extracurricular programs for the students at this charter school. That will include athletics as well as band, robotics, field trips, etc. So the good thing is we actually held 2 meetings because there's a lot of work to be done because our goal is to have a plan when school starts. I've been here 7-8 years now. Never once have I walked in the first day of News Charter School and somebody said to me, here's the plan for all fundraising events and what is your sponsorship strategy for this year at News Charter School. That's our goal for this year. So we met on June 27th. The detailed meeting notes are in there. I won't read them all. As well as we met again on July 11th. And actually we met again this morning. So I've been overloading that committee with a few meetings because there's work to be done. So the bottom line is what we've ended up is we've got a plan with a set of fundraisers that we're going to run across the school for the year. And that set of fundraisers is going to be a combination of, like I said, across the clubs and the athletics programs. We've worked in collaboration with the Booster Club. Ms. Pulliam assigned Ms. Sandora as the administrative liaison to the Resource Development Committee meeting. I've already had some initial discussions with her to get her up to speed. as well as Eric Brown Lee will be the liaison between Booster Club and the Resource Development Committee, because we want to have a joint unified strategy. We don't want to look as two different entities when we're out in the community talking to our parents about, raising money and working together for the school. So there's a series of activities that Booster Club has started to look at that they will actually run and operate for the year. Concessions being one, there's a fall festival one, there's some gift cards that they're going to sell, and then they'll have a membership strategy. They will help run those. They'll report back to the resource committee on how much they're going. We've got net profit targets for each one of these activities based on previous year's analysis of how we did, as well as we're looking forward to we want to grow some of those things. And like I said, that's a $200,000 target. We've also decided we're going to have Ms. Boyum had seen one at, what's the name of the school in Morrisville? I keep forgetting the name of the one that had the Kaleidoscope. And they had a nice webpage on kind of how they do a tiered structure of sponsorships. We as a school have talked about that, I think, 100 times since I've been here. We can never make a decision. Where we're going to make a decision this year. We made one this morning. We're starting out with 6 levels of sponsorship. There'll be different activities that every sponsor gets, everywhere from having their name in the gym to having it in newsletters, being on screen at all of our events, etc. We're looking to finalize that in the next couple of weeks of what all those deliverables will be. And so that together will be the plan for which we presented our open houses, etc. Ms. Sandora is going to cover it with all the staff the day school starts back to make sure everybody's on the same page, understands it, addresses any concerns. And so it's been pretty impressive. I think it was the biggest attended Resource Development Committee. I think we have between 10 and 15 people there this morning. So I was like, yay, we got a lot of people that want to help. But when we think about the community and our parents, our stakeholders, and a lot of people want to know how they can help, is they can get behind us in this plan, because this money is what helps us do these extras for our students, as well as accelerate the strategic plan that we're putting in place. So that's the high level review of the resource meeting. As of now, there are some items that we'd like to get to in the future, but there's only so much you can do so quickly. This is the first wave and Don, you said at our last board meeting, this is going to be a change of mindset for people, that we're all in this together. Every time we do a fundraiser, it's not for one project or one club or one team or whatever. It's for News Charter School. How that money is allocated on the back end with Ms. Boyum for budgetary purposes, lies in that budgetary decision process. And so it seems like a lot of people are getting on board. A little bit of apprehension to start with, but it seems like a lot of people now want to show up and participate. So we look forward to getting that kicked off as school starts.
Thank you. Very exciting. I think we're missing page 2, but the facilities.
Yep. Something crazy.
All right, a lot of excitement going on from a strategic side in the facilities. We actually met last week with the facility group, Dave Neville, Chris Johnson, and also the Stevenson group, very early in our planning stage, but we did have an architect out this week to kind of look at the elementary and intermediate academy and trying to get a time frame around when we get the new facility started. So that's really good news. Don't want to give you a lot of information on that right now. We're just, like I say, we met last week. They were out walking around today. I think Chris and them saw Rodney. But next week we do have a meeting scheduled to meet with the architect. Susan has some exceptional plans as far as how to make that work and all of that. But there's a lot going to be going on campus, a lot of ideas. And as we get a little further into the process, we'll definitely present that at the board meeting and present it to okay. No funding is committed yet, right?
Thank you.
May just for everybody, the whole discussion around the trees and the contracts are both. DOT asked us to wait 1 year for the pavement to cure on Kelly Drive, as well as with the extension out here on Booker Dairy. So that's just going to be postponed to the fall.
Okay, academic Academic Affairs did not meet. Ms. Jackson and I are going to be strategizing on kind of revamping what we're doing with that committee. But I did ask Susan to follow up with the exact measurements for the, this is what an A-rated school looks like.
Partially of the way there, I must apologize. I ended up with a stomach bug over the weekend, which got me halfway through. We do have our targets for the K-8 space. It's re-looking at our ACT and AP spaces for the high school schools. So if I can draw your attention to the screen behind you. We're going to look at 4 specific areas. One is grade level performance, another is qualifications and honors. I guess I should slow down because you probably can't read from where you're sitting. So for grade level performance, are our students meeting or exceeding our grade level targets? A very simple measure for us. The state gives us lots of tools for that, as well as other national assessments that we administer. Does that help?
Yeah. So as we go back, just a note, if you could put it in a table and then write whether the assessment is internal or external, and then what it is. What's the internal assessment, and then what's the external assessment. As well as when that readout would be, not, specific date, but like fall, sort of frequency of that.
Another area that we would look at is qualifications and honors. Are they reaching academic heights and achievements to set them up for college and career excellence? For example, are they receiving scholarships? Are they getting internships? Are they being recognized for outstanding performance at a science fair? All those types of things. This is just categories.
But how are you really going to go around and measure that? I mean, what if someone gets something and just happens to never tell anyone?
We'll have to also work on this is part of the profile. And we'll be working on our culture with our counselors as well to make sure that they're reaching out to students so that we can be aware of all of the successes of our students. For post-secondary placement, where are they going and are they achieving success? This is something we've talked about for a very long time, and our counselors have done a very good job over the last 2 years of really getting good contact information for our graduates so that we can do 1 year out and 2 year out and 3 year out and 4 year out surveys. So we should start seeing that data coming in this fall where we can say, hey, you left us 2 years ago. You said you were going to this university. Is that where you are? If so, are you still enrolled in your program? And we can start taking that information and helping us figure out whether or not our students are being successful where we intended for them to be successful, which wasn't here, but at their next adventure. And then retention and recruitment. This is a separate goal for us that's not specific to academic achievement, but it gets a little bit to some of the concerns of our parents tonight. We need to hold ourselves accountable for retaining our high quality employees as well as our students. So when we start looking at grade level performance, what we're looking at here is that we originally said that we wanted our school report card grade to be a 75 or higher for the 2018-19 school year. As everyone knows, those results don't come out until the fall. We're still a couple months out. We did hear from DPI this week that they are thinking that the math scores will come in August. Before we thought it might be as late as September. That's not to say that it won't be, but they have told us that all indications are that we will be getting those math results back in August. So our goal would be that for the current school year, we should have a 77 on our school performance our school report card grade. Our English language arts EOG performance came in this year. This is a rough number. This isn't a finalized number from the state, but this is us doing calculations based on the data we've received to date, and it did come in at a 69.04%. That represents 3rd through 8th grade performance on the reading EOG. That is not where we want to be, so we're going to push ourselves and get ourselves up to that 75% rate. That would be our target for 1920. It can never be less than that until we achieve it, and then we will continue to move on once we hit it.
Is our target of 75?
And for us, we're not going to fall below that as our target until we hit it. For math EOG performance, again, the scores have not been reported yet, so we're doing a placeholder of 75% in the event that it doesn't come out at that level. If it does, then we would do at least a 2% improvement rate, because that's a reasonable target for a single school year. And then the science EOG performance came in just under 82%, so we're targeting an 84%. As a reminder, that represents 5th and 8th grade students participating in that exam. We didn't have a specific target for it in previous years. This is our new sort of performance portfolio.
So this performance portfolio would need to have something to do with your writing competency.
We're getting that. This is just for the grade level performance on the school report card grade.
But why wouldn't you include that performance level?
Oh, okay, yeah, we can shift it.
Under grade level performance that they are writing. I mean, this is the thing that we have to keep in mind is that in order to have to have a complete picture, it has to be more than EOGs and school report
absolutely.
card. So you have to put the internal assessments in.
I'm asking a question because I don't know. I mean,
These are the standardized.
the concept of triangulation of data is saying the same thing, right? You can't look at one data.
Well, I mean, that was how
assessments-
Plus got in to create our own internal assessments to make sure that
Right.
their performance is actually, valid by looking at different data sets.
Is there an opportunity to have multiple external data sources that validate it in addition to what we got to do internally, or is that just?
There are other external resources that we use that are more intermittent, things like the M-class assessments. NC check-ins are going to become available to us this year. So those are other types of intermittent assessments, and those will be included but we tend to use those for ourselves to help our teachers adjust their teaching so that the students can be prepared for these summative. They're not intended to necessarily be a student assessment, but we will be looking at those and reporting those as we get those data points.
So I just want to be clear this time. So what we're saying is there will be external EOG scores for this year, and then there'll be internal assessment scores. And at the end of that progress points along the way, we will look at the measurement of those two indicators to determine the progress.
I wouldn't see why we went through a whole year of writing Grade Plus and not have it up there as a performance measurement. I mean, maybe
Well, I don't know how it's being measured.
We have piloted the rubrics for the first time
Yeah.
this spring, and we haven't implemented them fully yet for the fall, so the data reliability is not, we're not confident with it at this point,
So how do we?
because we're still updating.
So how
Well,
would
that's-
we?
So we probably need to back up and see, because that was a very expensive venture, I'll be quite frank with you, in terms to say that we are not fully implementing for fall.
We are fully implementing for fall in 2 areas, or all 4? Informational and? All 4, okay. All 4 areas will be fully implemented in fall. Are we ready for data collection?
The summer reading texts we're gonna develop and deliver a on-demand writing prompt for the students based on their summer reading texts. The entire staff will get together September 20th to assess the student writing prompts in whichever form of writing they did. So we have baseline data for where our students are beginning the year in 2019-20.
So from a presentation standpoint, we will start including internal and external together versus just showing the external and later showing the internal, and we'll make sure to include the writing baseline data
So what
as our starting point, and then use that as our intermittent, because they'll be doing regular assessments throughout the year, and those will be used to determine growth for student performance.
So will you all be bringing back to us as far as how those are weighted? For instance, what the internal versus?
Certainly.
Because it would be interesting to see how that formula comes out for that one school.
Well, the one score that you're seeing here for the school report card grade would be solely based on, because that is generated through NCEPI. So if we take that in combination with our own internal assessments to give ourselves multiple checkpoints for success, I don't think we're going to end up with a single letter grade for the school, unless that's the goal.
I think we do not, let's be very careful when we use this, because we do not have a composite equation for which this is one variable, that's one variable. We've just not even got to that level of mathematical analysis to weight it, right? Because then you got to weight your equation. This is just saying there's a target here. I keep going back to, as we talk about these internal assessments, I'm just being honest. I don't understand if you come to me and tell me you're a 90, I don't know what that means. If you tell me you're a 50, I don't know what that means. So I understand, because this is benchmarked against everybody else. Whether we like it or not, it is benchmarked against other people. So in these internal assessments,
They would be benchmarked against the standard. Right. So we need to explain that to you, that they're not benchmarked, we're not curving, it's not going to be based on how well the class is doing. It's going to be, here's the standard, is the student achieving that standard?
yeah, so on the scale of 1 out of 5, if you do your 1st September to 20th thing, would we say that, hey, based on where you're supposed to be against the standards, you're at a 2 when you should have been at a 5, or you're 20% of the way there? Is that the outcome that will come from that assessment?
Yes.
Okay, given that point in time where you're at and against the curriculum, you are 20% of where you want to be, where you should be. Am I saying that correctly? Because,
Well, you're looking for additional benchmarks for the...
I'm looking for numbers.
Well, that's what I was saying back to the Padea thing, that just to say everyone's going to participate, or even 80% without putting in some, what does that mean in terms of the quality of the participation or the training? Just makes it random.
So let me give you an example to try to illustrate. We've talked about a number of years at News Charter School. We believe that the curriculum and the pacing at which traditional school is diluted and it's behind. So we had always kind of said we teach +1 on the year's time frame of a student, because we believe the system has been watered down. So if you come and say, well, we're at 100% on curriculum, then you should be probably +1 or +2 in accordance to a traditional public school setting from a rigor. That's how rigor has been defined. It's an accelerated pace of content and learning of our students. So that's why I'm just pushing on this topic about...
That's not rigor. It's not accelerated.
Oh, no, I'm talking about that if you have the rigor in the classroom, then we would say that the assessments should be 100%. 100% of our students would be on grade level, competent, 100% competent in whatever those are in those standards. No?
I think it's a little more...
Nuanced?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fair, but I feel like we keep going around this
If I may,
conversation.
the challenge is...
We can't say that based on our competencies, as defined by the state, which is the curriculum set, can these students perform those competencies given where they're at along their K-12 journey?
Right.
And
Well, and that's essentially what the information behind you is trying to demonstrate, to say that we're not there, but we're not there. So that's why we've got to target getting there while
Yeah, but let's remember our conversation.
increasing the rigor elsewhere.
Remember our conversation. Conversation on this was, we can't get there if we can't get here. This is the floor of where we want to go. What I'm saying is the internal assessments are not supposed to be the floor. The bottom floor is the second floor. So when you get to the second floor, what does that represent? How do we communicate it? If you score a 5 out of a 5, pick your measurement methodology in our internal assessment. If you're a 5 out of 5, or you're a 10 out of 10, or you're 100%, or whatever, what does that mean to me as a parent with my student here? And I've never seen that explained. Does that mean based on the curriculum that the state has set, which we're supposed to teach, they're super at that grade level? Or is that +1 grade level or +2 grade level? However we communicate that. Now, I don't have a strong opinion because I don't understand it. I just see we keep missing the mark on explaining to parents that in our internal assessment structure for the standards we set at News Charter, When you're at X level, what does that mean to me as a parent?
We just feel like there's a lack of communication of internal assessments.
Yeah, what does it mean to, if I get some internal assessment report home for a student and a parent looks at it, what does that tell? What are we saying with that internal assessment?
And that's where I was going over the way, because we were talking about the training and utilization of data. And what does that get us exactly? What will that mean? What are those data? What are those indicators mean?
Right, we as a board said in the board retreat last summer, this is simply what the public sees, the USA News and World Report, and everybody picks up on. That's the number that the states look at. But we want to do more. I think we just got to be prepared of how we explain the meaning of these internal assessments to parents. I don't understand. And it's got to be data. I mean, we've got to have the data back in there.
So at this point, I'll pause this. We clearly need to do some course correction and come back later.
Why don't you finish?
No,
and then
okay.
maybe we can wait just a question.
But, nothing that the group would be looking for.
But I want to be clear, Zach, this is exactly what we said we wanted to do. We want internal data that sets a standard above what we believe these standards are. We just need to be prepared as we explain those measures. We can explain it in a way that everybody links it to what the students are supposed to be competent and proficient at doing. And that, I don't claim that's easy. But if we don't do it, everybody's going to come back and say, well, I don't know if my student is.
Look, I'll tell you from the other end, because I work at a college, and you can have a student that has gotten all threes, passed every single EOG, and come in and they're in remedial education because they read at a 5th grade level. That is the floor. That's what we're trying to say. So if you create your own internal assessments that give you data at the level you want your students to be at, and you measure it against that, then we know what, really how we have to push it. Our students, we know what additional things that we need to do. It gives you just a more holistic viewpoint of really what your student can do, which is why we had a parent talk about they could get A's in their class, and yet when they go to some external agency or a tutor, they're saying, your kid really doesn't write all that well, even though they're getting good grades. I have students all the time. My English teacher said this is an A. This is a D. You cannot write. And so, we're not doing them a favor by creating some kind of environment in which they're operating under a false assumption that they really are top notch, and then they get to college and realize, and believe me, it's a moment that they sit there and look at you and say, well, Dad, I thought, I thought I was really at the top, and we're like, no, not really. And you're in a remedial class. Because
So if we did those internal assessments, this may be a little bit of a philosophical thing, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm curious. If all of our students, if we were an A-rated school on this system, what would we expect to be like our ACT and our SAT scores for students? And the reason I'm asking is, if we believe those standards have to be higher through our internal assessments, is that going to translate towards ACT and SAT scores? Is it going to show up in that?
It doesn't. We already know all this.
Okay.
We already know. You can look at our ACT scores, you can look at our AP test scores, and they're not at the same level. That's why you have other data sets.
That's just what I want to be clear about, is that we know that this data set if we knock this data set out of the park, it does not translate to those kids being college-ready graduates because the ACT and the SAT scores are not. Okay? But if you have internal assessments that are above and beyond this, and we start out the first year and say our internal assessments, we're at 50% of where we think they should be. But in 3 years, we're at 90% on our internal assessments, and our SAT and our ACT scores that measure college readiness are not growing, then we've got a disconnection between our internal assessments and how the industry, whether we like it or not, is using college kids to get in college. Is that a fair statement?
Well, we have to concentrate on both at the same time because we're not knocking it out of the park on the
And
external.
it's a stepping stone.
So I just don't understand how, I feel like we got sidetracked because I would like to hear the rest of the presentation, of course, because I'm disheartened that we didn't meet our goal for those external assessments.
As are we.
Can we do that?
Well, there was only one more slide that had the EOC data for English 2 and for biology. But so again, it was just going to be the same scores.
This is a part of the conversation that we've struggled with over the years, is not the individual number first, it's this sequencing and the methodology on which we hold ourselves accountable for performance. If we're finally once and for all saying, this is the floor, we've got to get this up before we can go there, but we've also said we're doing these things in parallel. You can't wait till you get there and then all of a sudden say we have no internal assessment structure and things like that. So it's happening in parallel. I'm just cautioning that in parallel to things we're doing internally, we need to be able to explain it to people when we talk about plus and whatever, how those internal assessments translate to a higher college readiness of our graduates. And I've never seen that before. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's important.
And I think that's some of what politicians have been trying to solve with education for many years through all this testing. And how do you link it to the different scores? And, for instance, a teacher could focus their curriculum around trying to do well in the EOG.
I'm telling you, you all are focusing on the wrong thing. This is really just a big old thing to make, put kids in categories, and it doesn't really produce the level. Look at how much time we were spending on this, and this is not what really matters. These scores, and I know, externally we have to meet certain things for DPI, but, when you look at top public schools in this state, to say a 3, that is not even their goal. They're looking at everyone should have a 5. That is really what they're saying is the minimum, not 3.
Being mastery level, not proficient.
Yes, mastery level. Not proficient. That's not ever their goal.
And we've not said that it's our long-term goal. It's just we know we have some stepping stones along the way to make sure that we're making that progress. The last slide that I had prepared for today was, again, looking at those external data sets. As I mentioned, I still owe you some more information, but was that we had targeted that 75, again, as an overall score for our English 2 EOC performance. In 2018-19, we actually had an 84% proficiency rate, which again, is still looking at the 3s, but that's an area where the students are performing well, at least as compared to this particular assessment. So we would just want to keep growing that success for our students. This is the only assessment that North Carolina requires that does include a writing sample. So this is somewhat good news. However, from what we're hearing on I don't know that it's really truly assessing the right writing skills, because just because they're doing well on this doesn't seem to mean that they're doing well on other writing assessments externally. So we still need to continue pushing on our writing programs in the senior level. The Math 1 scores, of course, and the Math 3 scores will be new for us this year. If anybody doesn't know, Math 3 was added to the EOC list this year for the first time in several years, so there isn't really benchmark data for it. This will be the first year that scores come out. We certainly want to make sure we're at least performing at that 75 level, if not higher. Biology has been a strength for us at 76%, and so we would just like to continue the success in that area for these standardized tests. But this by no means, as Ms. Dixon has very eloquently described, does not describe a student that is successful. They are just measures that we can use as a school that are point in time, quantifiable, recognized by external stakeholders as well as triggers of success. According to the State Department of Public Instruction and the new legislation that was passed, 85 will be the threshold for a school report card grade to get to an A. So that's still not amazing, but we want to get there. And so in order to get from where we are to that point and continue moving forward so that our external views who look at, as we've said, we can talk as much as we want with our internal assessments about how wonderful our students are, but sometimes a person's first look at us is going to be looking at our school report card grade or looking at what the state says about us. So we can't not pay attention to both.
Thank you.
still request that we have some performance measure for writing in school-wide, since we have put in a complete year of working on that. So, the rest of the items that were on the list. But when you, no, so are you going to present the rest at the next board meeting, or?
I'll get it to the board and then for review for the officer.
What are we presenting next time at board meeting?
An update to
The remainder.
format assessments as well as other. Thanks,
And then you were going to, part of academic, talk about the presentation.
Oh, sure.
Just wanted to give you a heads up that we've been auditing our EC program all of the 18-19 school year, and as a result have had some findings of our own, as well as some external findings from the attorney that's been working with us to review our IEP processes and how we write our IEPs. So we've actually invited that person to come and do some training with our staff. They'll be doing that before they come back to school during the teacher orientation week. But at the August board meeting, I'm going to ask Mr. Squibb to give a presentation on what we're doing with our EC department, just so you have a feel for how it runs, the different programs that we're serving, and the improvements that we're going to make going into this school year to continue to make that process run even more smoothly while maintaining federal requirement.
Thank you. Board development.
The Board Development Committee, we did not meet, however, we do have two new board members that have joined us. It's our first board meeting, Benji Woodard and then Jane Jackson, who had a prior obligation prior to even applying to the board, so she could not be here. And Amanda Heifel put together these board manuals. I'm jealous. I want one to be a next month. So, and what I'll do, is it okay, can I go ahead and give one to Benji tonight?
Please,
And then
I'm
going to...
Would you like a copy?
Yes, I do.
I would like one as well. Should I make a copy for everyone?
Thank you very much.
Yes. So I'm going to go through and just make sure, before you make a copy for everybody, I'm going to go check everything and make sure that everything, and so, and I know everyone received the board training email that I sent out, and so I think everybody is, I know our new board members have started looking at that, the DPI, the Moodle, that's located online for the online training. And that's it.
As far as the manual goes, something like the PDF, so rather than all that printing, so
Okay.
if you can do
Well,
those chapters.
If you actually just upload it to our Canvas, board course, everyone can have access to it in one place. We certainly would like to welcome Mr. Woodard and Ms. Jackson to the board, and we are looking forward to working with you. And we had to do voting, correct, through board?
You have to vote for all officers.
It's July.
It's July, yes.
Yeah, am I crazy?
As a reminder, officers, and then once that's done, if we can get committee appointments, that will help staff organize meetings.
Okay.
I guess at this point, we'll open the floor for nominations for specific officers.
Yes.
That means new members can raise their hand.
Oh, he's got a point.
So our officers, the entire slate is open.
Yeah.
President, chair, vice chair, treasurer,
Yes, the chair, vice chair, secretary.
secretary, treasurer.
I'll say I'm willing to do treasurer one more year. If that's what the board chooses.
No,
Oh,
we'll
no.
slate the whole.
You nominated.
We'll nominate the whole slate first.
Yes. I'm going to nominate Nicole. Booker to be our secretary.
Y'all can handle mine.
Chair and vice chair.
I'm going to nominate Dawn Dixon to be our chair.
We'll put it, yeah, vice chair.
Okay, we have a slate of officers. Dawn Dixon, Chair, Paul Worley, Vice Chair, Nicole Booker, Secretary, Rodney Dunn, Treasurer.
I move to accept the slate of candidates for our executive committee officers.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
And that is all for the resource, for the board development.
We just need to assign committees.
Yes.
In terms of who would like to serve on our standing committees. Of course, executive committee is already chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. So our standing committees are finance, and I would imagine our treasurer would. Resource.
Technically, resource is Chris, right? Off. So,
I've been doing most of that already. I mean, given the continuity, I would do that. I would like to help with assistance wise. I'd like to actually hold Jane Jackson, given her experience with School of Science and Math. She was one of their strategic consultants to their fundraising strategy at the School of Science and Math. So I'd like to serve as chair. I'm trying to think of succession planning, right? That Robbie's in there for treasurer, he's on the treasurer with finance. I'm trying to think next year there'll be succession plans for people to pick that over at the facility.
I don't, not necessarily the chair, but I'd like to,
But that's a subcommittee of finance. So, okay.
I would say on that one, while it's a subcommittee of finance, I will tell you, given the 2-year plan that's been put in place, like that needs to be taken very seriously. I think that's what we need Robbie, Paul, and Benji, all three to get that pulled out.
Academics, I'll remain on that. I'd like for Jane, but I also want to be careful about pulling her in too many different directions. Board development,
I'll continue to do that.
Michelle, and I think that's it. Resource was Ronnie and Jane. And I would encourage everyone to remember that it does not just have to be you or a board member who make up the membership of your committee. You can have family, you can have community people, you can have instructors or teachers on the committee with you. So I think that's been a challenge we've had, not putting time into developing the membership. Excited that resource has all of 15 people. And again, it doesn't even have to be anyone associated with the school. If there's a community member that you feel could bring some good information to the committee. So I would encourage us to use our networks to seek out people who may want to participate on that level.
And Chair, I'd say if there's anybody, parents who want to serve, the best way for them to note their interest would be email to the chair.
That's fine. Some committees have very scheduled. I think finance meets pretty regularly. Academic, we're going to try to get on a regular schedule, like the third Tuesday of the month or something like that. So it'll be easy for people to participate and know when the meetings are planned. And then other committees are more, board development may meet more when we're doing nominations and things of that nature, but less, during other times. So if you're looking for a short term, serving on a nominating committee would be a great, great time to participate if you just want some small task for a short period of time. Any questions on that? I don't believe we need to vote on committee assignments. Yeah. Okay.
I have one question, maybe related to this. Have we prepared any resolutions of appreciation to Chris?
Not a resolution, but we did have certificates and everything for last time. So I do think we might have to outreach for a special invitation for them to come so that we can recognize their years of service. Yes, that would be nice. Okay, old business.
This, we were asked to bring back the recommended contract for the services through JCI for our students in the occupational course of study. We did take it through finance this month, and we feel comfortable that we can offset the cost of the program. That should be in your packet, as that was an old business item. The services that will be provided essentially take the place of what would probably require us 2 additional staff members to be able to transport the students. We'd have to have additional insurances and vehicles and things like that to get them to the job sites. Also, their network with not only DPI and being certified through DPI to provide these services provides us a huge liability coverage, in addition to the fact that they have a network within Johnston County to get the students the internships and the job shadowing opportunities that they require. So we do submit that for approval to the board at this time so that we can be compliant and well-served for these students.
Michelle, I can't recall. Was it last month that when we saw this and then you had some questions, or?
Yeah, I think the main question that I had, and I don't have my notes with me from the last time. I think the main question, it's something that we are required to do anyway. If we're not using JCI,
Correct.
we are required to do it.
As our students advance in the program, these are services that are going to require in order to be compliant with the occupational course of study graduation requirements.
And that they were basically the main service provider.
Yes.
In the county.
Yes, there wasn't anyone else.
It's a very limited market.
Yes. And Nicole, do you recall, did you have any other concerns regarding the JCI contract? Okay.
Make a motion, we approve the contract for vocational training services as presented.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. And will you be signing off on this, Susan?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they only had you sign because I wasn't present at the June meeting.
Okay.
You basically approved my authority to sign it.
Okay.
On behalf of the board. The other old, nope, there were no other old business items. We do have 2 new business items. One is in your packet. It is a field trip request from the junior class to take a field trip to the DC area. I think Dr. Schwartzlander knows the trip most familiarly. This is a group of students who were not able to go to a DC trip prior because we didn't institute that particular field trip until after they had moved through that grade level, and it does align with U.S. history curriculum, and as most of those students are either in U.S. history or AP U.S. history throughout their junior year.
So is this like part of your fundraising?
Well,
thing?
so no, because if you actually look at this submission, they are uplifting the cost of the program that's administered to each student and the FSA funded. So
Okay.
So just so clear, I didn't quite understand that. So you said that this is for a group of students that didn't go to DC before, and this was a later grade. What was it before? It was normally in 6th grade, right?
It has been in 6th grade for a certain number of years, but these students are older than the field trip, so they didn't go on, they've never had an opportunity as a new charter school class to go on an educational field trip to DC with all of the wonderful learning opportunities that come with that type of a trip.
So moving
This would not be a
forward, we
repeat
envision
trip.
doing it twice a year? Or is this just a one-off?
This is just a one-off. Most of the students, I think, after this will have had that opportunity.
Because a class missed it 1 year.
Right.
Okay.
Because it was implemented after this class had promoted through the 6th grade.
What grade level?
Is this,
Juniors.
is this fall activity graded?
The reflection activity, was that to be a graded assignment? It's on the second page of the submission.
Is it a writing reflection?
She said it was a graded assignment.
Yeah, it's a writing reflection that will be graded
Yes.
against our plus rubric for writing.
Yes.
How many students is it?
45? I think this,
Less
it's a
than
little bit bigger.
50, so.
The junior class is somewhere around the 45 mark, I believe.
So it's the junior and senior classes?
Junior.
It's currently just for the junior class.
And so do we have a benchmark of the writing assignment?
It's the rubric that was designed through the plus work last year.
No, but of the rubric, are you saying that 75% of the students will be able to reflect on this activity at a certain level?
We certainly can add that in as a benchmark.
I mean, if this is the tie-in, if it's a plus rubric, then you should start collecting the performance data.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm going to approve the field trip request to Washington DC.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. The only new business that I want to mention was,
I have one more new business item.
sorry.
We do have to apologize operationally for bringing this out of protocol. What's before you for consideration is a $3,000 license extension with M-Class. As you may have been hearing in the news, NCDPI had proposed to substitute for the M-Class assessment iStation, and then shortly after opted to pause on the implementation of iStation. It's a separate opted to stall on the implementation of iStation for very, very good reasons, but it's leaving us in a position where come August 24th, we will have no access to a reading assessment tool that is very valuable for our teachers, not only for benchmarking processes, but also for making sure that we get students where the support and the teaching that they need to help them as they grow as readers. And so we are asking for the board to consider waiving its protocols and allow us to present this as an item for approval so that we can go ahead and, for at least 1 year, have a site license so that we can continue to administer a test that our teachers and our students are familiar with, so we can continue to collect good data while the state is figuring out when they're going to turn on the iStation program and make that data available to us.
We're definitely moving forward with the iStation, it's just a matter of when.
Correct. Barring any future board decisions at their level that might change that. But as far as we can tell, they've already ended the contract with M-Class, because we've received many communications from M-Class that come August 24th, we won't be able to administer the assessments anymore.
So just so I'm clear, M-Class is an independent, like...
Yeah, Amplify is the name of the company that has developed the assessment tool. It helps us with, I'm going to mess it all up, but Ms. Endora can tell you if you need to know, but it's various pieces of information related to reading levels that helps teachers to truly personalize their learning experience for the students so that they can help them grow in their reading and their phonemic awareness and phonetics.
So I'm following as closely as I can all the updates from the state and everything. We received word several weeks ago, about 2 or 3 to be exact, that they were going to delay our implementation till January.
So our initial assumption, like many, was, okay, well, we'll have M-Class possibly until at least January. Last week is when we received communication officially from M-Class stating that their contract with DPI ends August 24th.
That's what, so M-Class actually was free last year because that was
Yes.
part of the state. Now, they pulled it, they're going to another vendor.
Right.
Then they left us high and dry because they're not ready with a new vendor, but then
Exactly.
they cut.
And in addition, the work that we're doing in our K2 team to go forward with, I personally have not even gone through the training with iStation yet. I don't go until next week to view the platform live. So,
Is it a newer platform, or is it something that's been around and they're just switching?
it seems like it's a version of iReady, only it has several different components. I'm not very familiar with it, I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of different schools of thought out there. I have to go through and go officially with the training. However, thinking of our students and the work that we've done to throw teachers into a program in January after, to be candid, last year we had to work to make sure everybody was trained properly with M-Class, because that was another, we kind of jumped into it half foot. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'd like to take another year with M-Class, continue the work that we're doing with it, using it to monitor progress. Effectively, as we learn iStation and figure out, is this the best assessment tool for us, and is this the direction the state's going?
And iStation is what I'm hearing on the news about the
Yes.
burden assessment.
Yes, yes. And again, it would leave our primary teachers without any form of data collection, which when then you have to sit for an EOD in third grade, there's nothing valid along the way to track where we are, and we're not doing it with efficiency like we've started to do last year, we're now putting ourselves back a year from the work we've done.
Well, yeah, I think we need to remember too that just because the state, unless the state dictates we use something, you don't have to use what they provide us just because it's free. I mean, if the quality is not there based on administrative guidance and fidelity and implementation, then we may need to pay.
Yeah.
You can't just trust it just because it's free and it comes from the state. It's what we need. So
Right, and we've purchased a lot of materials in planning through extra funding that we had to work with guided reading as a goal for K2 to start to strengthen, and 3, 4 as well, to start to strengthen our readers. So for us to move on to something else and move away from what we've already planned, that kind of puts us in a bad position to make progress this year. So we're going to continue on the path of working to implement guided reading using M-Class as a tool to allow us to assess, are we doing well? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing and implementing well?
Does this have to work with Power School in any way?
These are things that Mr. Williams and I will have to sit down and explore. Right now, it is synced through Power School. However, I'm assuming that once August 24th hits, it will no longer be synced there, and we'll have our own independent platform. But that's an assumption. He and I will have to sit down with
Well,
our
sometimes
rep.
that's why you use what the state uses, because they will, it's compatible with whatever else, and then they,
Given the backlash that the state's already receiving,
Yes.
Who knows what they'll use the next year.
So we figured, stay safe, stay with what we've got, continue the work of. This year, we're going to really work on using the progress monitoring component and monitor our students that are below grade level, which is something we've not done with efficiency in the past.
I'll make a motion to approve the M-Class renewal proposal.
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
And that'll fall to the technology line item, and we'll reconcile that in finance.
So then the other new piece of business, just as a heads up, I'll be sending it to you. Paul has been working on revamping our board grievance policy and has a first draft. So I will send it out. Second draft. And we are separating the policy, so there will be one specific to employees for grievances related to both general employment and actions against employment, and then there will be a parent or family grievance policy. And so we're just starting with the employment one first. So it is very detailed, and so we need to carefully review it for the steps to make sure that we're all comfortable with the requirements at each level. Because while in general it's probably the same sort of things, there are a lot more deadlines to adhere to from both the employee, administration, and the board to ensure that the grievance is being
Is that going to be emailed?
I'm going to email that out, yes. So I will give a comment period, and then my goal is that we can have that one approved by the August meeting, and the second one for the family general grievance to be in draft form by the August meeting. So we'll try to get each one done over the next couple of months.
Handbook will need to be updated to correspond.
Yes.
We have migrated to a Google Doc version of the employee handbook for our employees so that we can do auto updates and just direct them to that and have them sign off that they've read the new information. So we can actually implement that relatively quickly now.
Okay, so please look for that this week in your email. I believe you said we need closed session, so I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. Second. All in favor? Reference NCGS 143-318.11A6. Thank you.
Good night.